Morning, everybody. It's the day after Halloween. It's the day after Boo for Bailey. Sean here. Peyton's here too. We are going to do a video walkthrough of the completed haunt. We had an awesome time last night. We had over 200, probably pushing 300 people come through. We raised a ton of money for Bailey. We're really excited to get to give that to her. So we're going to do right now a video walkthrough of the tour of the haunt, a video tour of the haunt, and show you what happened. And that way, if you missed it, you'll know what you missed and you'll come back next time.
It looked a lot better in the dark, remember that. Okay, first of all, you see our sign? We posted this up, got some good publicity from it. Up above we have one of 3 Blair Witch Project scarecrows. This one has a severed head hanging from it. Rather gruesome, but not too creepy. This lovely gentleman is named Kent, and while he might look like a Russian grandmother in the daylight, the pink didn't really show up as pink at nighttime. And down here we have our Boo for Bailey pumpkin that was painted and donated by one of the teachers at Oak Grove Middle School. Now over here you see our 2 other Blair Witch Project scarecrows with the tattered streamers. And here's our graveyard. You may notice that almost every single one of the tombstones has been knocked over and trampled. That's because we could not see our way around in the dark last night, so we were tripping over everything.
The people that came could follow this path,
but they didn't. They kept trying to follow us into the graveyard and then tripped over the tombstones. So
I used this little area back here to control foggers and add a few extra scares over that wall. Kind of an accidental doom chamber.
Yeah, so the goose was a nice touch. At the beginning of the evening, we had a strobe light flashing on the goose. I don't know why, but it worked. Over here, we had our corpse bride. I was a vampire lurking in the graveyard, and eventually we moved the strobe light so it was flashing up here, and then we had the fog. And you could not see really what was going on up here out on the path, but I would come up and I would do my little shtick where I would like unwrap her veil and tell them that she had died a long time ago, but we were still madly in love, and then I would take her skull off and pretend to kiss her. So started them off with a couple of laughs before they got to the real scary stuff.
You notice hanging above her head, the jar, the mason jar. We made 30 or 40 witch jars, thanks to Pumpkin Rot's blog. Thank you. Shout out to Pumpkin Rot.
She had a rose, but that disappeared somewhere along the way. So then after we introduced the bride, we would stumble our way across the fog machines and the tombstones back over here.
Created a little setup of a fire. Had tiki torch flames in there. Just using an old concrete bird bath, some wood I found in the yard, and a few rocks.
And apparently a Panda Express soda cup.
We also have this creepy boy-girl statue that we lit with a tiki torch.
It didn't stay lit very long, though. It looked really cool while it was lit, but alas. Some of our funny tombstones, and then we have our little hovel lit by more of the witch jars. We have, as any self-respecting ghoul apparently would have, dangling gourds, and a nice oven to bake children in. If you continue this way, I would lead them up to this point, and then I would send them on into the darkness alone. We had these beautiful spider webs that have been up for a few days, and so after it rained for
almost
2
2 weeks.
That long?
Yeah.
Awesome. After it rained for 2 or 3 days, they looked wonderful. They were incredible.
The leaves in them.
That really
great
made a nice
touch.
And then yesterday, Halsey came along and added some spiders. We had a little stand here with a candy bowl, and at the beginning of the night, Esmeralda here was in the bowl, but eventually we moved her down there. But this was great. This was all lit by strobe light, and it was just a tunnel. It would just look like a tunnel in the night.
The strobe lights were flashing into the guests' faces. We traveled this direction. And I do recommend, when you're going to use spider webs, stretch them as much as possible. They look realistic. Put them up a few days in advance. They catch the leaves. They catch real bugs. They look amazing.
We actually did see real insects crawling through these spider webs. We had someone hiding back in here. I don't even know how he fit in there, but he did very well. He blended in. He was all dressed in black, and he would spook them right as they got here to the witches scene. Again, with the hanging gourds and the witch jars.
Thank you so much for the donations of the gourds.
I think it's wonderful. Don't those just look as Halloween-y as anything you've ever seen? very otherworldly.
One more Blair Witch Scarecrow, the
This-
actual symbol from the movie.
Although this one doesn't have any tatters on it.
Doesn't need it. It's from the movie.
Oh, okay. And then we had a handful of witches. How many did we have? 3, 4?
4.
And they had a real fire in here, and they had a fake fire over here, and they also had some strobe lights, I believe.
Yeah, another strobe light. I
Look
like
at these amazing pumpkins. Isn't that bizarre? I don't even know what that's called.
to use strobe lights in the way that they're intended, flashing into your eyes, because then you have the opportunity to put something behind that to be a surprise.
And we are very high tech around here. We just use packing tape to tape the strobe light on top of this Bumby pumpkin. But of course, in the dark, nobody knows.
One thing I didn't mention yet is these fences. They're all made out of pallets that we've scavenged, but I like to enclose things a little bit. So we cut down some oak limbs and some cedar limbs.
From not the neighbor's yards.
Not the neighbor's yards. We just go through and we screw them to the pallets, and it creates a illusion of trees, and you're walking along the edge of the woods. Pallets make great fences. You've seen
When did we add this little detail?
it's a reused pallet. The ones out front, I put pickets on. I dog-eared so they look like a picket fence, and we hung the witch jars all across the front of them.
There are dum-dums everywhere on this entire trail. It's people just were shedding candy left
Like
and right.
Hansel and Gretel trying to find their way home.
Their poor little candy bags couldn't take it, I guess.
We called this the witch house. Had to enter the witch house. Oh, by the way, this was the witch's croft.
And that is a real word. He did not make that word up.
Croft is a clearing in the woods, and this is the witch's clearing in the woods.
Aren't you impressed? This is the dot room. As you can see, it is a room full of dots. We have a little bit of it's fallen down here, but in the night, pitch black, totally lit by black light. So these dots, fluorescent, they glow. Very eerie to begin with, but then we had a wonderful guy named Ben, dressed head to toe in black with these dots all over his costume. So he would just stand like right here, and then the guests would come in the door, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is a creepy room," and then he would move along the wall, or he'd come up in front of them and totally wig them out.
This is one of the absolute best rooms based upon customer reviews.
Yeah, people love it. We did this 2 years ago to similar effect. Now to our little doll house. You go ahead. We had a little too much fun with this place. This is probably the most demented part of our entire show. We had this place full of fog and strobe lights again. As you can see, we hung Barbies, mostly naked ones, from the ceiling, and then we attached various other dolls to the walls. You may notice that the ones on the walls, this one is, you can't see any of their faces. The idea was that they were being punished. But we had 2 teenage girls dressed up as dolls, and then 2 little girls, Sean's daughters, who are what?
5 and 7.
5 and 7, dressed as dolls in here. So full of fog, strobe lights, creepy dolls everywhere, and then all these little girls and girls dressed as dolls. It was pretty effective. The beautiful thing was that when you came through in the fog, you couldn't see the layers of the dolls hanging in front of you. You could just see the ones that were right in front of you. Then you would push through, and then, oh, here's some more. Then you push through, here's some more. Meanwhile, there's a little tea party going on over here. And this poor guy, who is a very hideous doll, people thought was a real child. Oh, we had this ventriloquist dummy that was parked in that chair so that when people came around the corner, he would be the one to greet them. Rather hideous.
The crib was done nicely as well. Allie, my 5-year-old, would sit in it and goo goo gaga as people came through. She was hilarious.
This was maybe the most surreal portion of the deal.
Kind of a last minute thought too.
Here's another sick dum-dum. This was the prison, and these seat belts here kind of simulate prison bars. Well, we had a guy in here dressed in a convict costume, black and white stripes, and he had this toilet, and he had a horse mask. So it was a horse-headed convict on a toilet in a seatbelt prison, and it was incredibly surreal. But sadly, the horse mask he couldn't see well enough out of, so he eventually swapped it out for something else. So it was still bizarro. Did you have something?
Love my witch jars. And again, you see how we've used the brush on the fences to create the illusion of confinement.
So this is where they have just been, right? The graveyard is where they started, and they've turned the corner, and now they're on the other side of the graveyard. We had another guy right here. He looked great in the dark. He had a demon mask on, and he would lie down, and I knew who he was. And from the other side of that fence, he would look like a dummy to me. He didn't look like a real person. So he would lie here, sprawled across the way. People would come through, think he was a dummy, and then he'd get him every time.
This is we called it a porch path, but we hung some antlers up here, which are white-tailed deer antlers. I put them to good use here. A couple baskets of skulls that we lit with glow sticks. And this is where I stuck my commercialized tombstones. I don't do a lot of commercialized tombstoning, but we had them and had this little area. Wanted to fill it in a little bit.
So they would come up this way. We've taken some of this down already, but this hay bale...
Let me pause you for just a second. When you're doing a haunt, always leave yourself access to get people in and out for workers and guests. This little area right here would take you back to the front of the graveyard without having to go through the rest of the haunt. And it helps when you have to run a supply chain from one end to the other to have shortcuts.
Yes, it was very invaluable for us as actors to be able to zip back and forth. But also, there's a lot of little kids who are brave at the beginning, but by the time they've gone through the dot room and the prison and everything, and they get here, they're wigged out. So this made a nice quick exit for any of the little kids who couldn't handle it. So we would just shoot them out this way.
We had one or two areas like that we left open until right as we were opening, and then we closed up the wall.
All right, so back to this. We have we've taken some of this down already. This hay bale was on top of the stairs up here, so that this created a barrier. Then we had these beautiful pumpkins that were donated lining up on top of the hay bales, right? So it created a barrier so that people couldn't continue on the path. They had to come up to the porch. Now, to be honest with you, this was my favorite part of the entire show. This is sort of our homage to the classic Halloween trick-or-treating. We had a woman here dressed as a little old granny. Wonderful costume. She looked great. She really looked like a little old person, but she is, 25, something like that. She would sit here in her little
and
granny
pregnant
costume.
with twins.
I'm sorry?
And pregnant with twins.
So she was a fat old lady, and she would sit here with her bucket of candy, and she would be like, "Oh, little children, have some tricks or treats," and then she would give them the candy.
Bless you, cat.
And then she would send them over to our table, and she'd say, "Oh, help yourself to some more candy." Now again, we've kind of taken things down. It looked a little better. It looked great in the nighttime, but we had, our little crystal ball with our black cat. We had the Frankenstein mask with the glowing eyes. We had the Dracula head on the platter, and of course our Wolfman. So again, kind of the classic Halloween, which is kind of my favorite Halloween bit. But little did the trick-or-treaters know that this table had a hidden surprise. A person in another old lady mask hiding underneath the table. So when the kids would come up and reach for the candy, there she would be, and then she would give them more candy from underneath the table.
This candy was a craft that we did. We ate some candy, which was the hardest part, and then we created an illusion using the wrappers that it was a bowl full of candy. In the orange pumpkin lights and in the dim light and the smoke, this looked amazing.
It was awesome.
The ploy was to have the people think that somebody was in that costume back there. And we've all seen the gig where the guy dresses up and pretends to be a prop and then scares them at the last minute. I wanted to reverse that. I wanted it to be a prop and then give them a scare through the bottom. It worked great. Had lots of good results with that.
People really liked it. And I enjoyed having the kind of the goofy Dracula head. I mean, why is there a Dracula head? But at Halloween it works, right? So we had a hidden camera here so that we could catch people's reactions. We had some really neat stuff. Interestingly, before we started, let me back up. When we watched the video, we had it going well before we actually started the haunt, and we could see some of our own workers come up and try to take candy out of the bowl. And it was great to get the people's reactions of the head popping out of the table. Over here, we've got some incredible pumpkin luminaries that Sean created. that you know, I don't even know how you made those. If you want to tell them.
I had a five candle string of lights, and we drilled a hole in the back of these pumpkin buckets that are trick-or-treat pumpkin buckets you get for $1 yesterday or 50 cents today,
Or 25 cents tomorrow.
and just poke the holes through them, poke the light bulbs through them, like so. And because they're outdoors, and because they are low wattage light bulbs, we don't have a risk of burning or melting or catching a fire. But I just drilled a hole big enough for the light bulb base to go through, and then put the light bulb on the inside and screwed it to the socket on the outside.
And they gave a lot of light. I don't believe we even had the porch light on, did we?
No porch light.
It was all lit by these, and it was perfect. It made a wonderful orange light.
I also used those same lights with the candle, the C9 bulbs that look like candles, to create the fake fire in the witch's croft.
A couple of other things. Look at this beautiful white pumpkin. Again, all these pumpkins and gourds were donated to us, and they're just beautiful. This white one is my favorite. One little touch that I have to show off is my brother Shrunken Ed. 2 years ago when we did the House of Fears, I was a voodoo witch doctor, and I carried my brother around and made people kiss him before they would enter the haunted house. And so that's our kind of our little homage to the last time we did it.
In this haunt, we used 4 smoke machines, 4 fog machines. One was placed here at the beginning of the corn maze onto the porch. We had 2 in the graveyard and 1 in the doll room.
And you may notice again candy wrappers all over the ground. I don't know if that's from our actors or from our guests, but either way. Here we had corn stalks. You might have seen these before in previous videos. These are actually tied to a swing set. We'll get to that in a moment. We'll show you the back side of this. Corn stalks on lattice work and leaning up against a swing set. And especially in the dark, it really creates the illusion that there's a whole row of corn. Now we had one guy in a ghillie suit right here. You can kind of see where he smushed down all the corn where he sat. He blended in so beautifully in the dark. It was all lit by the candlelight and by the luminaries.
By candlelight, we mean in these pumpkins out here, jump ahead a minute, we put these tea lights, battery operated tea lights here. And they make awesome little candles. We get about 2 dozen of them lit up back here. Again, completely safe, and again, completely amazing looking in the dark.
So the ghillie suit guy was right here. You couldn't see him. He blended in with the corn. It's incredible. You could not see him. He would get him every time they would come off the porch, and he would get him. Now, yeah, we've already shown you the buckets here. I think we've already mentioned that it rained for like the last 3 days. We were really afraid that it was going to rain us out last night. It rained all day, well, on and off all day Wednesday. And then for most of yesterday, we were out here about 2 or 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon getting things ready, and it was pouring down rain, and we were all, ready to just quit. But it cleared up by what, 4, 5? Plenty of time. We had beautiful weather for the haunt. But these pumpkins were all filled with water, so we had to come through and dump out the water.
You can see how much rain we got.
Yeah.
See the water in that one.
And so some of it helped, though. I mean, it made everything look soggier and damper, including our 2 scarecrows here that are still rather waterlogged because they're not in the light or in the sunlight at all. But they look rather gruesome to begin with, but now they look particularly sick.
This haunt consumed 67 bales of hay, and they were all donated. We got 59 of them free from a field here in Oak Grove. And yes, there was a sign that said free. And then we had the really nice ones, like over by the porch, donated also. Those were the good ones. Those are very nice straw hay bales.
Oh, and the mulch too. Let's talk about the mulch.
Yes. At one point yesterday afternoon, we got a message from Bailey's grandmother and mother that they wanted to make sure that everybody could get through the haunt. And so we had from Ben's Nursery in Blue Springs a pickup truck bed donated full of this mulch. And
we didn't get to keep the truck bed, just the mulch.
Just the mulch. And then we had 3 guys show up who helped to spread it out. So throughout most of this haunt, we had mulch pathway, which is awesome because it kept the mud down and allowed everybody to be able to come in without having to worry about going out looking like a swamp monster.
And better traction and all that stuff.
This is the pumpkin tree. I want to mention that. It's cheap, it's simple, it's amazing, it looks great.
Beautiful in the nighttime.
The entire month of October, I like to have a pumpkin tree. And as I get more and more pumpkins on after Halloween sales, I hope to create a whole orchard of them.
If you haven't ever done so, read the book The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury, and this is practically what this is. We had a guy dressed up supposedly as a scarecrow, although he looked to me more like a demented farmer in here. And he would just kind of go, he was never in one spot twice. He would just kind of hide out. He would team up with the ghillie suit man, and they would together tag team and scare our guests silly. And here is the backside of our corn stalks, our swing set. So all purpose, right? You can have the kids put the corn stalks and then take a break on the swings. You might see a pile of rejected seat belts over there, and a pile of humiliated spider web as well.
One of the things that we've noticed as we go through this haunt is there are very few things that you can buy off the shelf being used as they're intended. You can buy these pumpkins off the shelf anywhere Halloween time, but you're supposed to use them to trick or treat with. We use them as luminaries and props, and just have a great time.
Yeah, we repurpose everything. We try to find things in thrift stores, try to find things from people's trash. We don't like to buy something and then use it for what it was intended. We like to find it cheap and then corrupt it.
Now this here is the maze. This was a last minute addition, and thanks to Carrie, Bailey's
Grandfather.
Bailey's grandfather, they were able to get it done and complete. Take us through there, Peyton.
Yes, sir. Now, to be honest with you, just to tell you how last minute this was, yesterday afternoon around 1 o'clock, I was thinking we're not going to be able to have a maze. But lo and behold, it all worked out. Okay, first of all, I don't even know where these came from. Where did these bead things come from?
I bought these from the tax guy over by the railroad tracks. Got about 15 pounds of 4-inch chain for $10.
The tax guy?
Yeah, taxes by me.
Is that T-A-X or T-A-C-K-S?
T-A-X.
That's bizarre.
And so Halsey yesterday spent a little bit of time connecting a bunch of 4-inch chains to create drapery.
Very effective again in the dark. A lot of this stuff looks like nothing in the daytime, but is very effective in the dark. All right, so once you enter the maze, there's two ways to go. There's straight ahead way, and then there's the way to the left. And I still get lost in here. Which way is the shortcut?
This is the shortcut. And again, we hung chain. We wanted to make things as eerie as possible. Things to hit you on the head. Things you got to push through to come through. And this is a very small maze. The walls combined measure less than 100 feet. But you double that a little bit with the hallways. This is the end of the long way. And really, there's not much to it. Thank you, Levi, for jumping through the wall last night. But it's just got a couple turns in it. Brings you back through here. And again, we did strobe lights. This is the entrance over here where we just came from. But the strobe lights, the fog that's drifted through here, really add to the eeriness of this whole setup.
It basically makes kind of a donut with an exit off to the side if you can find it. So a lot of people would get lost in the donut and keep going around in the circle.
Take you back through. It's simple, it's cheap. We have less than $75 invested in this, and it was a lot of fun. You get a lot of mileage out of it. So you see how short the shortcut really is.
Where did the we bought the plastic, right?
Right.
Where did the canvas things come from?
The vinyl signage was a throwaway from a couple years ago. A lady was using it to make purses with, and the seat belts as the handles, and she was getting out of the business, so I picked up tons of vinyl. I mean, literally, I probably had 300 pounds of vinyl all total.
You can see where we used these 2 years ago by cutting off holes so we could stick our hands in and scare people. As it turned out this year, this wasn't really a place to stick their hands through, but the holes are still there, the flaps are still there. So once they came out, they land in our reception area. We had a fire in the fire pit. We had seating so that people could sit around and talk. Oh, we forgot the clown. There was a clown in the maze, and there was a man with a chainsaw, and there was a man in a gorilla costume, and they were just kind of everywhere, right? In the maze, out in front, working the crowd. They were awesome.
So forgive the mess. We scrambled to get everything done in the rain yesterday.
Yeah. So it still looks a little bit, but again, at nighttime it was worked a lot better. We had a big donation bucket right here. We were selling cookies and muffins, which apparently have been sitting out all night.
I'm gonna eat them.
All right. We have dum-dums coming out of our ears. All of our candy was donated. How many pounds of candy did we say we had?
We had 59 pounds and 7 ounces of candy donated to us.
So,
and if you want to know what that looks like, you can find it on our other video.
or you can also find it littered along the trail throughout our entire.
It was basically a shopping cart full of candy.
And so the donation bucket was right here. They could put in their donations. We were selling them the muffins and the cookies. Were we also selling hot chocolate?
No, hot chocolate was free.
Aha. If you come this way, that's all the professional side of things. Let's show you the behind the scenes. Well, with our rejected vinyl, with our boxes of tools, with our QT cups sitting around.
One thing we did do was put music in this. We had 5 stations of music, and we would just get some computer speakers. We would take our devices, our iPhones, our Kindles, a couple MP3 players, even we went old school and did a CD of music. So, but we had 5 different stations, one on the porch playing a lot of Danny Elfman, 2 over in the Graveyard and Witch area playing some Midnight Syndicate, Graveyard, and The Awakening, I think. Back here we played Sea of Laughter by Midnight Syndicate, which was a lot of fun.
Let's go to the front and show them where our line stood. Like I said, we had a gorilla, a clown, and a man with a chainsaw. That's sort of an eclectic group, but they worked very well working the crowd. So as you can see, the house sits on the corner of 8th and Clinton, and there's some more candy trash. We're going to have to pick up candy wrappers till Valentine's Day. But so we have this nice intersection, and actually the line got so long at one point last night that where they were in the intersection.
Yeah,
and so
a couple times.
We got the word from Master Creator there to start sending them in faster so we could get them out of the intersection so that we didn't get a visit from the police.
Here's a far off view of the pumpkin tree. Quite a good looking tree.
This was fantastic because the people on the other side of the hay bales could see our guests and talk to them, but the guests could not see them. So it was just the way the lighting worked. They could stand back here, see them through the netting, and talk to them, but the people standing here in line would have no idea who was actually there. You can notice here the ground was all muddy. The one place we did not get mulch. This shows how our line was, right? This is trampled down because we had so many trick-or-treaters and their parents coming through last night.
We missed it at the beginning, but here is a view of the fence. These are just pallets. You can find them free at basically any building that has a dock. And we built some amazing witch jars, which are very simple to do. A mason jar, you take some brown, some red, some black paint on a paintbrush and jiggle it around on the inside, smear it with Elmer's glue, tinted with black or brown on the outside. Wrap some jute twine on it, put some wire, floral wire on there, little tea light on the inside, or votive. The ones that are hanging sideways in the hovel in the graveyard with the votives down in the corner, they melted really well. They created a beautiful, long-lasting glow throughout this whole scene. This looked amazing coming up on it in the nighttime.
I'm glad to hear it. As an actor, it was a lot of fun because we had all kinds of hands and feet and bones and skulls in the graveyard, so I could just pick things up and sometimes throw them at the customers and kind of wave them in their faces. And it was great. How many people did we have in the show? We had 2 people in the graveyard,
4 people in the witches,
1 person in the dot room,
4 in the dolls.
We had a prisoner and a creepy guy and an old lady and another old lady. I haven't been counting. I've already lost track.
Okay, so we got 2, 6, 7, 11, 12, 13. The porch ladies make 15.
Ghillie suit,
16.
Scarecrow,
17.
Chainsaw,
18.
Gorilla,
19.
and Clown.
20.
And then you.
And me.
And your mom.
And my mom. So we had 22. Oh, and Jeff over at the donation station.
23.
And the Joker. So we had 25 people easily working here. And
it was a blast.
Needed every one of them.
And my legs still hurt. And I'm still sleepy. But I want to do it again.
So there you have it, guys. This is the walkthrough of House of Fears. Our presentation of Boo for Bailey. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got to come. Leave us comments in the section below. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you'd like to see. We
And
want to keep doing this and
we'll
make
see
it better.
you next year.
Happy Halloween.